We've got breaking news, and this one hits a little differently because it's not a player leaving San Francisco. It's another coach getting pulled out of the building. The Seattle Seahawks are hiring Brian Fleury as their next offensive coordinator, officially poaching him from the 49ers, where he served as tight ends coach and run game coordinator. This is a promotion for Fleury, and that's important to understand right away. This isn't lateral. This isn't a minor move. This is the Seahawks saying, we want someone from the Shanahan tree running our offense. And if you've been paying attention over the last several seasons, you know this has become a pattern. The league keeps coming after Kyle Shanahan's staff. It doesn't matter if it's head coaches, coordinators, position coaches, or quality control assistants. If you're tied to this offense and you've had success inside this system, other teams are watching. And now Seattle has taken their shot. I want to ask you something right off the top. Are you worried about losing another key assistant? Yes or no? Because I know some fans see this and think, here we go again. Others see it and say, this is what happens when you're one of the best organizations in football. Drop your answer in the comments. Now let's zoom out for a second. The 49ers already lost defensive backs coach Daniel Bullocks. That was one hit. Now Fleury is gone. That's another. And while this isn't the first time Shanahan has had to reload his staff, there's always a short-term adjustment period when you lose someone who has real influence in your offensive structure. Fleury wasn't just a tight ends coach in name only. He had run game coordinator responsibilities. That matters in this system. The 49ers offense is built on timing, spacing, and the run game setting everything up. So when you lose someone who has been deeply involved in designing and teaching those run concepts, there's going to be an internal shift. Also, let's clear something up because I've already seen confusion around it. The 49ers do not receive a compensatory pick for this. Those compensatory picks are tied to minority promotions to head coach or general manager positions. This is a promotion from position coach to offensive coordinator, and Fleury does not qualify under that rule. So there's no draft pick coming back to soften the blow. That's why this is strictly about football operations. It's about how Shanahan reorganizes things. It's about who absorbs those responsibilities. And it's about whether the system is strong enough to withstand another coaching departure. But here's where it gets interesting. The bigger conversation isn't just about Fleury leaving. It's about what this says regarding how the league views the 49ers offense. The Seahawks could have promoted from within. They had internal options. Instead, they went directly to the source. That tells you how much weight the Shanahan offensive system carries across the NFL right now. And I want you to rate this loss on a scale from 1 to 10. 1 being no big deal at all, 10 being a massive problem. I'm genuinely curious where you fall. If you appreciate getting real analysis instead of wild rumors and clickbait speculation, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on. We're building this thing the right way, and the goal is to 1,000 subscribers. Every single one of you who hits that button helps this community grow stronger. Because in the next part, we're not just going to talk about Fleury's title. We're going to talk about why Seattle specifically wanted him, why the Shanahan tree continues to spread across the league, and whether the 49ers offense is still the model everyone is chasing. Reply with C when you're ready for the next chapter. When you look at this move from Seattle's perspective, it makes even more sense. They didn't just hire Brian Fleury because he had a good interview. They hired him because of what he represents. He represents direct access to the Shanahan system, and right now, that still carries serious weight across the NFL. Think about the decision-making process. The Seahawks could have promoted from within. They had coaches on staff. They had continuity options. Instead, they said, no, we're going to the source. We're going to get someone who has worked directly under Kyle Shanahan, who understands the structure, the terminology, the sequencing, the philosophy behind the offense. That tells you exactly how this league views the 49ers system. And this isn't random. The Shanahan coaching tree has quietly become one of the most influential pipelines in football. Offensive coordinators, head coaches, assistants, quarterback developers, they're everywhere. Teams believe that if you plug into that ecosystem, you give yourself a structural advantage. Fleury's background is a big reason for that belief. He played quarterback in college. Then he entered the NFL coaching world on the defensive side of the ball as a quality control coach. That combination matters more than people realize. When you've studied defenses first, when you've broken down coverages and tendencies from that angle, you develop a different offensive perspective. You understand how defensive coordinators think. You know what stresses them. You know what formations force them to communicate. That's not accidental. Kyle Shanahan himself started his NFL career working on defense in Tampa Bay. He has openly credited that experience with shaping how he attacks opponents as a play caller. Seeing the game from both sides creates a more complete understanding of leverage, spacing, and timing. It's holistic football thinking. So when Seattle hires Fleury, they're not just hiring a tight ends coach. They're hiring someone who has been involved in the run game structure, someone who has helped build the weekly plan, someone who understands how the outside zone concepts marry with play action and shot plays. They're hiring continuity with the same philosophical roots that have unlocked quarterbacks across the league. Let me ask you something here. Would you rather keep elite assistants year after year? Or would you rather have a system so strong that anyone who leaves can be replaced without a drop-off? Because that's really the debate. If the foundation is solid, departures shouldn't derail you. But if certain minds are irreplaceable, that's where the concern starts creeping in. And here's another angle. Seattle had success running the Shanahan-style offense. They saw what it did for their quarterback. They saw the efficiency, the structure, the rhythm. Now that their previous offensive coordinator moved on, they clearly didn't want to drift away from that formula. Instead of reinventing themselves, they doubled down on it. That says something powerful about where this offense stands in the league hierarchy. Even as defenses evolve and adapt, even as more teams copy elements of it, franchises still believe this structure gives them a competitive edge. But here's where I want to pivot the conversation, because this is where it gets more uncomfortable if you're a 49ers fan. The question isn't just whether the Shanahan tree is thriving elsewhere. The real question is whether the 49ers version of the offense is still operating at peak efficiency. Because over the last couple of seasons, there have been signs of slippage in certain areas, especially in the run game. And if Fleury had a significant hand in that structure, then his departure intersects with a bigger issue. So here's what I want you to think about before we move on. Is the 49ers offense still the gold standard in the NFL? Or are defenses finally catching up? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you value deeper breakdowns like this instead of surface-level reactions, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed. We're pushing toward 1,000 subscribers, and this is the kind of real football conversation that builds a smart community. Because next, we're going to dig into the run game specifically. We're going to talk about what's actually changed, how personnel losses have hurt this system, and whether this is more about coaching or roster construction. Reply now. We need to have the honest conversation, because losing Brian Fleury only feels bigger if the foundation underneath him has already started to crack. And when you really dig into the tape from the last couple of seasons, especially in the run game, there are legitimate questions. Fleury had been deeply involved in the 49ers run structure since Mike McDaniel left. Even before he officially held the run game coordinator title, he was a significant schematic voice. That matters because this offense is not just about calling plays. It's about sequencing runs to set up play action. It's about stretching the defense horizontally. And it's about perimeter blocking, turning 5-yard gains into explosive plays. And that's where the drop-off showed up. When the personnel was healthy and complete, the system hummed. When it wasn't, the efficiency dipped sharply. That tells you something important. Earlier in the Shanahan era, the offense could manufacture production even when pieces were missing. Recently, it has felt more personnel dependent. The loss of Brandon Ayuk had a bigger impact than most people initially realized. Everyone talks about his route running and separation in the passing game, but his blocking on the perimeter was huge in this system. Outside zone concepts demand wide receivers who are willing and capable blockers. If your receivers aren't sealing the edge, the entire design compresses. The defense flows faster, linebackers scrape clean, safeties trigger downhill, and suddenly, what used to be a clean stretch run becomes a 2-yard grind. George Kittle, when healthy, is still one of the most dominant two-way tight ends in football. His ability to block in space gives the 49ers flexibility. But here's the problem. When he wasn't available, the drop-off in rushing efficiency was noticeable. That tells you the margin for error is thin. You can't rely on one elite tight end to carry the edge blocking for an entire scheme. So here's the real question. Is this a coaching issue or a personnel issue? Because those are the very different conversations. If it's coaching, then losing Fleury could amplify the problem. If it's personnel, then this offseason becomes about fixing the edges, not just reshuffling staff titles. And I want a clear answer from you. Do you trust the front office to fix the perimeter blocking this offseason? Yes or no? Because free agency and the draft are coming fast. The player acquisition window is where this gets corrected. There's also a bigger league-wide context. Defensive coordinators have had years now to study Shanahan-based offenses. The motions, the condensed splits, the play action looks, none of it is a surprise anymore. Defenses have adjusted. They're playing faster. They're triggering more aggressively. They're building fronts specifically designed to muddy outside zone. That means the execution level has to be elite. You don't win on concept alone anymore. You win on detail, on angles, on physicality on the edge. And if you watch closely, the 49ers didn't consistently win those edge battles this past season. That's not just about scheme. That's about personnel, health, and physical dominance. Which brings us back to Fleury. His departure is significant because he was part of that run game brain trust. But even if he stayed, the 49ers still needed upgrades. They need receivers who can block with authority. They need depth that doesn't crater the efficiency when one star misses time. So as we evaluate this loss, we can't isolate it. It's connected to a broader evolution moment for this offense. If you're the kind of fan who watches more than just the box score, who understands that blocking angles matter just as much as touchdowns, then you're in the right place. Make sure you're subscribed. Help us push toward 1,000 subscribers. This channel is about real football conversations, not hot takes. Because now we get to the final piece of this. What Shanahan actually does next. Does he promote from within? Does he expand someone else's responsibilities? And how quickly does he move with the NFL Combine approaching? So now it comes down to Kyle Shanahan and what his next move is going to be. Because if there's one thing we know about this organization, it's that they don't panic. They adjust. Shanahan typically finalizes his coaching staff structure around the time of the NFL Combine. That's when things start to crystallize. Interviews are done. Responsibilities are clarified. Titles are assigned. And with the Combine approaching, the timing of this move matters. He doesn't have 6 months to think about it. He needs clarity before free agency and the draft process fully accelerate. One logical option is promoting from within. Joe Graves is a name that makes sense. He has experience at multiple offensive positions. He's worked with quarterbacks. He's coached tight ends at lower levels. He understands the structure of the offense. Promoting someone like that maintains continuity. It keeps terminology intact. It avoids disruption. Another path would be redistributing responsibilities. Chris Forster, as offensive line coach, already plays a major role in the run game structure. It wouldn't be shocking to see him absorb more formal authority in that area while a new tight ends coach handles position development. That kind of internal reshuffling allows the 49ers to keep the core philosophy stable without overreacting. And that's really the key here. Overreaction is the enemy of sustained success. The 49ers have lost assistants before. They've rebuilt before. The system has survived. But here's where I want your opinion. Would you prefer an internal promotion to preserve continuity? Or would you rather see Shanahan bring in an outside voice to inject something new into the run game? Drop your answer in the comments. There's a real philosophical split there. The bigger truth is this. No coaching adjustment will matter if the roster issues aren't addressed. Perimeter blocking must improve. Depth must improve. Physicality must improve. Whether it's Fleury, Graves, Forster, or someone from outside the building, the scheme will only go as far as the players executing it. Free agency is coming quickly. The draft will follow. This is where the real fix happens. Coaching structure matters, but personnel is the multiplier. And if history tells us anything, it's that Shanahan adapts. The league evolves, defenses counter, and good coaches adjust. The 49ers are not strangers to having their staff picked apart. It's the cost of being consistently competitive. Other teams want what you've built. So while Seahawks fans may celebrate landing Brian Fleury, and rightfully so, because he's a quality coach, this moment for the 49ers is less about loss and more about response. Strong organizations are defined by how they answer these moments. If you believe this team will respond the right way, hit that like button. If you're confident in Shanahan's ability to rebuild this structure, make sure you're subscribed and help us reach 1,000 subscribers. This is where real football conversations happen, without rumor noise, without manufactured drama.